She signed a contract by accident and woke up married to a billionaire CEO she barely knew. Clare Monroe, a broke artist with a wounded heart, and Julian Vance, a cold perfectionist with a hidden past, never meant to fall in love. But in the chaos of a fake marriage, hospital bills, secrets, and one unforgettable rooftop proposal, something real began to bloom. What happens when a relationship built on lies becomes the only truth they can't ignore? Where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful, emotional stories like this one. The sunlight sliced through the gaps in the blackout curtains like a blade, but Clare Monroe wasn't awake to see it. Not yet. Her head throbbed, her mouth felt like it had been scrubbed with sandpaper, and there was a faint scent of leather, citrus, and something far too expensive for her usual budget. When she finally opened her eyes, everything felt wrong. The ceiling was too high. The sheets beneath her skin were silk, not her usual cotton blend, and the view outside the towering window wasn't of the alley behind her tiny studio apartment in Boston. It was a sweeping skyline she didn't recognize. Panic bloomed in her chest as she sat up slowly, a wave of nausea washing over her. Her mind scrambled for the last memory she could grasp. Her friend Mia, a bar, shots, music, a man with eyes like winter, and then nothing, just a blur. Her gaze landed on the nightstand. Sitting there was a thick, pristine white envelope sealed with gold foil. She hesitated before reaching for it, her fingers trembling. She unfolded the document inside, and her heart stopped. Certificate of marriage. Her name, Clare Monroe. His name, Julian Vance. Real ink, real seal. Her breath caught in her throat as the sound of water stopped. A moment later, the bathroom door opened, and out stepped a man who looked like he'd walked off the cover of Forbes. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a navy shirt unbuttoned just enough to reveal a sharp collarbone. Jet black hair perfectly tousled. Eyes cold, steel gray. He looked at her like she was an item misplaced in the wrong aisle. "You signed it," he said, voice cool and without preamble. "We're married, and I don't break contracts." Clare gawked. "What the hell are you talking about? This has to be some kind of prank." "No prank," he interrupted, pouring himself a glass of water with clinical precision. "You were at the Wellington Lounge last night. My team arranged a meeting with a contract bride. You were not her." "Then why didn't you stop it?" she cried. "I didn't know until it was too late." He handed her a folder with calm detachment. "But the papers are signed, filed, witnessed. It's legal. So now we either fix it quietly or we work with it." Her pulse thundered in her ears. "You're insane." "I'm practical," he corrected, already scrolling through something on his phone. "And you, Clare Monroe, are in a rather unique position." She snatched the folder and flipped it open. Inside was a 6-month agreement, bullet pointed to death. No intimacy. Public appearances required. Clause after clause. At the bottom, $600,000 compensation. She stared at it, then back at him. "You expect me to live with a stranger and pretend to be your wife for half a year?" His gaze didn't flinch. "I don't expect you to pretend. I expect you to perform." Clare pushed off the bed, wrapping the sheet around herself like armor. "This is a nightmare." "It's an opportunity," Julian said. "You said it yourself last night. You needed a miracle." She froze. "What?" He stepped closer. "Your brother. The surgery. The debt. You told me everything, Clare. Maybe you don't remember it, but I do." Tears burned the backs of her eyes. She didn't remember saying those words, but they were true. All of it. "Why me?" she asked quietly. "Because," he said, "you were the first person in years to talk to me like I wasn't a headline. You were real, and I need real." She didn't know if it was exhaustion, desperation, or the eerie calm in his voice, but something in her shifted. Clare looked down at the contract, hands shaking. The money could change everything, or it could ruin her completely. "I need coffee," she whispered. Julian gave a half smile. "Barely. That's in clause 7. She let out a breathless laugh. Then, with a sigh that felt like surrender, Clare said, "Fine, 6 months. But I swear to God, the second you turn into a robot, I'm out." Julian extended a hand. "Deal." And just like that, Clare Monroe became the accidental wife of Julian Vance. Clare Monroe dragged her single, overstuffed suitcase into the penthouse like a reluctant contestant on a reality show she never signed up for. The doors had opened with a soft chime, welcoming her into a space that looked less like a home and more like an exhibit at a design museum. Polished hardwood floors gleamed under her sneakers. Minimalist furniture perched like sculptures in a room too quiet, too still. Massive windows stretched floor to ceiling, framing the Boston skyline like a portrait. And not a single pillow was out of place. Julian was waiting in the kitchen, dressed in a tailored gray suit that made her feel wildly underdressed in her hoodie and leggings. He didn't say hello. He didn't even look surprised to see her. Instead, he gestured toward the hallway. "Your room is the second on the left. The contract is on the nightstand. Read it, sign it." She raised an eyebrow. "Wow, romance is alive and well." He didn't flinch. "This arrangement isn't about romance." "No kidding," she muttered, rolling her suitcase past him. The guest bedroom, her room now apparently, was bigger than her entire Brooklyn walk-up. Cream-colored walls, blackout curtains, a walk-in closet already stocked with high-end basics in her size, and a bathroom that looked like it had been carved out of a spa catalog. She stared at her reflection in the mirror above the sink. "What the hell are you doing, Claire?" she whispered. Then she picked up the contract. Clause 1. No public displays of affection unless pre-approved. Clause 7. Mutual respect of space and privacy. Clause 10. No entering Julian's study under any circumstance. Clause 23. Weekly calendar of shared appearances to be reviewed every Sunday. It went on for 28 pages. That night, they barely spoke. Julian retired to his study, no surprise there, and Claire curled up in bed, unsure if she was exhausted or just emotionally numb. The next morning was their first breakfast as a married couple. Claire stumbled into the kitchen in pajama shorts and a messy bun, still half asleep. She blinked at the coffee machine. It looked like a spaceship. "How does this thing work?" Julian didn't look up from the Wall Street Journal. "Silver button, not the red one." She frowned. "Which one's silver?" He sighed, stood, pressed the correct button without ceremony, poured her a cup, and slid it across the counter. She sipped. "Okay, fine, you win this round. Good coffee." He resumed reading. The silence that followed wasn't exactly hostile, but it wasn't cozy either. Julian operated like a well-oiled machine. Wake at 6, run 3 miles, read reports over breakfast, leave by 8. Claire tried to follow, but her freelance schedule was chaos by comparison. She worked late, spilled paint, left her sketchbooks all over the living room, and had a tendency to talk to herself out loud when she designed. On day 3, she left her coffee mug on the counter. On day 4, she rearranged the spice rack, alphabetically, backwards. On day 5, she accidentally knocked over a sculpture that looked like a metallic question mark. Julian noticed everything. "You moved the nutmeg," he said one night over dinner. Claire raised an eyebrow. "Wow, you should get a hobby." "I have one. Managing a billion-dollar company." "You should try something more relaxing, like therapy." He didn't smile, but there was a twitch at the corner of his mouth. Despite the rules and routines, little cracks started to form in his armor. One evening, Claire had a panic attack after a phone call from the hospital. Her brother's condition had worsened. She tried to hide in her room, curled up in the corner, but there was a knock at her door. No words. Just a single post-it note slid under the door. "Send me the bill. It's covered." She stared at it, heart aching, unsure what to make of him. And then there was the night she found him at 2 a.m., slumped over his desk, eyes red from too much screen time. She didn't say anything, just microwaved some leftover mac and cheese and placed it beside his laptop. He didn't thank her, but he ate every bite. Slowly, something shifted. They didn't understand each other, but they were starting to notice each other. The third week began with a storm, both literal and metaphorical. Outside, rain lashed the windows of the penthouse, gray clouds swallowing the skyline. Inside, Claire paced the living room, a rolled-up magazine in her hand and a boiling frustration in her chest. She held up the tabloid to Julian, who sat at the kitchen island, sipping espresso like the world wasn't on fire. "Fake wife, real affair," she snapped, reading the headline aloud. Beneath it, a grainy photo showed her hugging someone outside a cafe. Her ex, Evan. Just a hug. Just goodbye. But of course, the tabloids twisted it like a pretzel. Julian didn't look up. "I saw it." "That's it. No, Claire, I know this isn't what it looks like," or, "Hey, sorry your reputation's being dragged through mud." "Nothing?" He finally set down his cup. "I didn't ask for an explanation." Claire blinked, stunned. "You're not even mad?" "I don't get jealous over contracts. The words hit harder than they should have. Claire swallowed. So I'm just a placeholder? A walking press release with a pulse? Julian stood slowly, his expression unreadable. We agreed on terms. But everything changed, she whispered. You know that. Silence. Heavy. Thick. Claire turned away, tears threatening. You said you needed real? Was that a lie too? Julian didn't answer at first. Then, quietly, I was engaged once. Her head snapped around. That wasn't in the contract. She wanted what this is, a deal. But I thought it was love. She left when my father's company almost tanked, said I wasn't secure enough. Claire's heart softened despite herself. I'm sorry. I don't want to need anyone, he said, eyes distant. But then you came along, and everything got messy. Claire walked over slowly. Maybe messy isn't always bad. He looked at her, really looked, and for a moment the cold CEO disappeared. Just a man with wounds he hadn't figured out how to dress. Later that night, Claire found herself in Julian's forbidden study. She wasn't snooping, at least not intentionally. She'd gone looking for a pen, but the door was ajar, and curiosity tugged her in. It was nothing like the rest of the apartment. No steel, no glass. Just warm mahogany shelves lined with books, a piano in the corner, and a fireplace flickering low. Above the mantel, a painting caught her eye. It was one of hers, a small, abstract piece she'd sold at a local gallery nearly a year ago. She remembered the buyer, a man in a charcoal coat who didn't say much but paid in cash and left a tip for her stories. A chill ran down her spine. You bought this? She asked aloud, not realizing Julian had followed her in. He leaned against the doorframe. I did. Claire turned to him, stunned. You knew who I was? No, not then. But when I saw you again that night, I remembered. He walked toward the piano, fingers grazing the keys but not playing. I didn't plan this, but I didn't stop it either. You could have told me. I was afraid you'd run. She shook her head, voice soft. I might have. They stood in silence, the distance between them shrinking but not yet gone. You don't let anyone in, she said. I've learned not to. Well, I break rules, remember? She said, inching closer. Maybe it's time someone broke yours. He smiled, one, small and flickering. You already did. That night, Claire couldn't sleep. The revelation sat heavy in her chest, a mix of betrayal and something dangerously close to affection. He'd seen her art before he knew her. He'd chosen it, chosen her, and maybe that meant more than 100 planned contracts. She curled beneath the covers, staring at the ceiling, wondering what this was turning into. A mistake? A miracle? Or something in between. One thing was clear. It wasn't fake anymore. Not for her. Maybe not for him either. The knock came just after midnight. Claire, still in her paint-streaked pajamas, padded barefoot to the front door of the penthouse, expecting Julian's assistant or a late-night courier. But when she opened it, the air shifted. Standing there, wrapped in an ivory designer coat and perfume that smelled like secrets, was a woman Claire didn't recognize. Hi, the woman said, voice polished and smooth. I'm looking for Julian. Claire's stomach twisted. And you are? The woman smiled with calculated charm. Victoria Hale, his ex. Before Claire could process the words, footsteps echoed behind her. Julian appeared, his face going pale, not with surprise but something closer to dread. Victoria, he said, his voice flat. This is a surprise. She laughed softly. I'd say so, considering the last time we spoke, you told me never to contact you again. Julian stepped forward, placing himself slightly in front of Claire. Why are you here? I saw the headlines, Victoria replied, eyes flicking to Claire. The marriage. I just had to see it with my own eyes. Claire folded her arms. Well, now you have. Anything else? Victoria's smile sharpened. Plenty, but I'll keep it short. Julian, can we talk? He hesitated, glanced at Claire. She said nothing, jaw tight. 5 minutes, he said, ushering Victoria into his study. The door clicked shut behind them. Claire stood in the hallway, arms crossed, heart pounding. She didn't want to care. This was fake, temporary. She wasn't supposed to feel jealous or threatened, but she did. She hated that she did. 15 agonizing minutes later, Julian reemerged. His face was unreadable. She's leaving tomorrow, he said. What did she want? To get back together. Claire laughed once, bitter and dry. Of course she did. Beautiful timing. I told her no. Claire looked at him, searching. Because of the contract? His jaw clenched. No, because of you. The words should have made her heart soar. Instead, they landed like glass. Beautiful, but fragile. She nodded slowly and walked past him into her room, saying nothing. The next few days unraveled slowly. Julian was there, physically, but distant. He stayed late at work, skipped breakfast, and offered clipped responses when she spoke. Claire tried not to notice, but every empty seat at the table felt like a confirmation of her fear. This was always going to end. One evening she cooked pasta, his favorite, or at least the one thing she'd caught him actually enjoying. She set the table, poured wine, waited. When he walked in and saw the setup, he froze. "I'm not hungry," he muttered, turning to leave. "Julian," she called. He paused. "You're running." He turned back slowly. "Not from her. From this," she said softly. He didn't deny it. "This isn't real, Claire. It's a contract." She nodded, swallowing hard. "You're right, but it could have been more." Silence hung heavy between them. "I can't be the only one who felt it," she whispered. Julian didn't respond, and that silence was louder than any word. That night, Claire packed a small bag. No drama, no note, just a quiet departure. She moved into her friend Mia's spare room in Back Bay and buried herself in deadlines. The apartment was small, the Wi-Fi was spotty, and the mattress was lumpy. But it was hers, and it was safe. Julian didn't call. She told herself it was better this way, that she'd misread everything, that maybe he'd always been cold, just like the tabloids said. But some nights she found herself staring at her phone, willing it to light up. It never did. 2 weeks passed. Then one morning, a package arrived. No sender. Inside was a neatly folded copy of their contract and a note scrawled in familiar, precise handwriting. "You were never part of the plan, but you became everything I never knew I needed." Claire stared at the note for a long time. Her hands trembled as she reached for her phone. That evening, she stood outside the Vance Corp tower. When Julian came down and saw her, he stopped like time had folded in on itself. "I read your note," she said. He nodded, breath shaky. "It was overdue. Why didn't you fight for me?" "I was afraid," he admitted. "Afraid it was too real, that you'd leave if I said I wanted more." "You're an idiot," she whispered. "I know. I don't want to be your fake wife anymore," she said. His face fell. "I understand. I want to be your real one." And for the first time in his carefully calculated life, Julian Vance forgot the script. Claire never liked driving in the rain, but that morning, she didn't hesitate. The sky was a dull slate, clouds hanging low over Boston like a warning. She pulled on her coat, tucked Julian's favorite overpriced sandwich into a paper bag, and set the destination on her phone. He'd been in back-to-back meetings for days, working late, barely eating. She wanted to surprise him. She wanted to remind him that, even in the middle of the chaos, someone was still thinking of him. She glanced down at the GPS just long enough to confirm the next turn. She didn't see the black sedan blow through the red light. The crash wasn't loud, just a terrible slam of metal and momentum that knocked her breath from her lungs. Glass shattered. Her head whipped sideways against the window. Then, silence, darkness, static. When Julian got the call, he didn't say a word. His assistant said she'd never seen him like that, ashen, shaking, fingers trembling so hard he couldn't even grab his jacket. He walked out of a high-stakes investor meeting without apology and ordered the car before they could ask a single question. By the time he reached St. Luke's Hospital, Claire was conscious but groggy. Her forehead was wrapped in gauze, one arm scraped raw and dotted with bruises. She smiled the second she saw him. "Guess I'm bad at surprises," she whispered. Julian knelt beside the bed, brushing a strand of hair from her face with a hand that still wouldn't stop trembling. "You scared the hell out of me." "I'm okay." "You're not okay. You could have." He stopped himself, throat tight. She studied him quietly. "Would you still be here if we weren't married?" He blinked. "What? If this contract never existed, if I'd never signed anything, would you have come?" His jaw tensed. Then his eyes met hers and held. "Yes." Claire looked away. "Then say it." He hesitated, only for a beat. Then, softly, "I love you." Her breath caught. "I didn't realize it at first," Julian continued. "I thought it was just convenience, then comfort. But somewhere along the way I stopped seeing you as a part of a deal. I started seeing you as mine." She didn't speak. Her eyes shimmered, not from pain, but from something deeper, something that reached past the bruises and into her bones. "I was a coward," he said. "You walked away and I let you, because I didn't know how to be the kind of man you deserve." Claire reached out, lacing her fingers through his. "You're here now. I'm never leaving again." He sat with her for hours, holding her hand like it was the only thing anchoring him to earth. They didn't need to talk. The silence between them was no longer empty, it was whole. "Say it again," she murmured. "I love you." A single tear slipped down her cheek. "Good. Because I love you too." 6 months later, the contract officially ended. No headlines, no press releases, just a date circled quietly in Julian's calendar, the day they'd be legally free of each other. But neither of them brought it up. That evening, Claire returned home from a gallery meeting to find the penthouse dimmed, candles glowing along the hallway, soft jazz playing in the background. Not Julian's usual style, too inefficient, too sentimental. But then again, he wasn't the man she'd married under a contract anymore. She followed the music up to the rooftop. Julian stood by the edge, hands in his pockets, the Boston skyline glittering behind him. He wore a dark suit but no tie. His face wasn't guarded, it was open, soft. "You came home late," he said. "I took the long way." "Good," he replied, stepping aside. "Gave me time to finish this." On a small table sat a velvet box. Claire stared at it. "You're not doing what I think you're doing." "I probably am," Julian said, picking up the box and opening it. Inside was a simple, elegant ring, understated just like she liked. This time no lawyers, no clauses, no countdown. He took her hand. "I don't want a contract with you anymore. I want a life, messy, honest, yours and mine." Claire blinked fast, her throat thick. No script, no shareholders, just one very stubborn man in love. She smiled. "You already had me," she said, slipping the ring on herself, "since the moment you made me coffee and forgot the sugar." Julian laughed, really laughed, and kissed her. This time, it wasn't pretend. This time, it was forever. Sometimes love doesn't come the way we expect. It doesn't arrive with fireworks or perfect timing. It doesn't ask permission. It crashes into our lives, messy, unexpected, inconvenient, and demands to be felt. Claire and Julian's story reminds us that what begins as a mistake can become the most beautiful turning point of our lives if we allow ourselves to let go of fear and control. Julian spent years hiding behind logic, contracts, and routine. Claire lived in chaos, chasing dreams while barely keeping her life together. But when two imperfect people met under the most unlikely circumstances, they discovered something deeper than any plan could predict: authentic connection. Real love isn't scripted. It's found in the quiet moments, the small gestures, the shared silences, and the willingness to stay when it would be easier to walk away. Their journey teaches us that vulnerability is not weakness, it's courage. That sometimes we have to walk away to see who will follow. That love isn't about grand declarations, it's about consistency, growth, and showing up every single day. And most importantly, that the right person won't just love your best version. They'll embrace your mess, your flaws, your fears, and still choose you anyway. So, what about you? Where are you watching from? Tell us in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more heart-touching stories that stay with you long after they end. Let's keep believing in real love, because sometimes the best things in life are the ones we never saw coming.